Good day and welcome to the Patently Strategic Podcast, where we discuss all things at the intersection of business, technology, and patents. This podcast is a monthly discussion amongst experts in the field of patenting. It is for inventors, founders, and IP professionals alike, established or aspiring. And in this episode, we take a deep dive into the essential art of patent searching. You have an idea and you'd like to protect it, but can you? Is it novel? Non-obvious? Would you eventually be able to license or enforce your patent down the road? Who else is competing in the area, and where's the white space? If you get the patent, can you freely produce and sell the idea without the costly risk of infringement litigation? These questions and the quest for their answers unfold like a detective mystery. The sheer magnitude of source material to sift through is overwhelming. 172 countries with patent systems, over 11 million active patents across the globe, millions more published but not granted, topped off with endless volumes of non-patent literature. A multitude of keywords, synonyms, and domain-specific languages, countless databases, a cacophony of clues, mixed with an abundance of superficially convincing evidence that could ultimately prove irrelevant. An overly litigious villain competitor lurking around the corner, and the greater powers of observation and the superior mind of a detective to cut through it all and make plain the answers to our untrained eyes. Shelley, patent strategist, search specialist, and chief sleuth here at Aurora, leads a discussion along with our all-star patent panel into the low-cost, high-return world of patent searching. The domain is complex, but the efforts have one of the highest possible ROIs of anything you can do, especially in the early stages of your patent journey. With some practical guidance and a little help, patent searching will save you significant time, money, and effort in the long run, all while yielding a much stronger patent overall. I assure you, listening in will be a gift to future self. Shelley is joined today by an exceptional group of IP experts, including Ashley Sloat, President and Director of Patent Strategy here at Aurora, David Cohen, Principal at Cohen Sciences, and Amy Fine, Patent Attorney at Van Cott and Adjunct Professor at BYU. Oh, and backed by popular demand, the group kicks off with another gripping icebreaker, which turns into an instant classic. I promise you'll never think about PBS NewsHour commercials the same way again. Take it away, Shelley.
So, Ashley has come up with this great icebreaker. We get to hear about everyone's faults, right? Imagine if you were a superhero and your arch nemesis's mission is to annoy and torment you. How would they do that? So I'll start with you, Ashley.
Yeah, I've thought about this because I think actually Josh might have created this one, but I think honestly, I get a lot of satisfaction and value out of tidiness. And so I think if, everything was just complete disarray and no matter what I did to rectify it, it would continue to be disarray. I think I would be a little bit stressed about it and it would bug me because I definitely like orderliness. And so I think, from like a constant.
We know that about you, Ashley.
Right. Not shocking, right?
Okay. So I can tell you the things that I absolutely hate. A lot of commercials. I absolutely hate.
Who doesn't? By commercial.
Yeah.
And there's one in particular that I really, it's a financial services outfit. And they're one of the sponsors of PBS NewsHour. So, there it is again. And it's the financial advice, the very cush office, right? Chairs and, the whole nice office thing. And she's welcoming, to her clients, right? There's a couple comes in, man and wife, and it's the currently completely appropriate, middle-aged type of couple. The man is gray, and lean and handsome, and the woman, her hair hasn't really started to turn gray yet, and she's a little, obviously a little younger, and so this is more than you asked for, I know, but so the financial advisor says, well, before we get started, what's new? And have you seen this commercial?
No.
Nope.
But I'm really intrigued now. I want to know what it's about.
And the wife says, well, I forget the daughter's name, Alice is pregnant. This is the daughter. And then the man says twins. And it's just so smug, I just want to smack.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel, David?
That's how I feel. I could go on, but just to give you asked, Shelley, it's your question. So,
Well, now that you have tormented us, David. So
All right.
mine is pretty easy. I can go with the tidiness. I don't always, I'll just work to clean that up. But for me, it would be somebody flying to Montana, all of those Florida flying palmetto bugs that then chase me down, fly in my hair, crawl all over me. I would turn from superhero to paranoid very quickly.
Super exterminator.
Woo! No, they scare me half to death. That's for sure.
So how do you know about Florida palmetto bugs?
Well, that's where I grew up. I've lived with them. This is why I moved to Montana, to get away from the palmetto bugs.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well.
And Amy, how would your arch nemesis torment you? In other words, what's the thing that bothers you a lot and that somebody would use against you, like an arch nemesis?
That's a great question. Probably, oh goodness. Like, girls can just be super catty. The cat
Yes.
come out, that kind of thing.
Mean girls.
Yes.
It's a real thing. Like, there are really mean girls out there.
I don't see myself as a mean girl. I don't feel like I ever have been, but I feel like there are others that are. So it's just hard, I don't know, but you learn, right? You learn how to deal with it.
For sure. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know what it is, but you definitely come across, and they don't do any other women any favors with such behavior, but there are those out there of that pedigree or that nature. Right.
Right.
Well, this is a safe place for, in theory, no mean people. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. Take it away, Shelley.
So briefly, we're going to talk today about patent searching, why inventors and companies should have a professional search conducted, some types of searching. I do have some tips that I have used over the years that I will share. I have conducted a search, so I will show you. I'm not going to do it real time, but I'll show you what I did, and then how I report the search results to clients. So that's briefly what we're going to talk about, and then jump in whenever you like if you have any questions as I go along. So I think as patent agents, we have a unique opportunity to be able to partner with our clients and understand their invention and their future goals and have some positive impact on their lives and their business. And I think that patent search firms or automated software tools don't actually, to some extent, cannot do that, where we can partner with them from the beginning all the way to the end. And some of the initial steps that we can take is obviously to do some patent searching to help them understand if their invention is novel and non-obvious. It would save them time, money, and effort before going public. Knowing what's in the public domain, it gives them an early opportunity to be able to modify their design to overcome any existing art that's found. And by having properly scoped initial claims, it also provides them the opportunity to reduce prosecution costs. Filing overly broad claims in the beginning is is going to provide a lot more prosecution down the road.
Yeah, let me just say, I think that's extremely important. You know, I mean, my most recent experience is with, and that's one of the things they do. They always try to write a broad claim,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and what that does, you know, it adds more and more prosecution, and really what the client wants is a patent, right? I mean, they want something to be issued. They don't want endless arguments. So anyway, I just wanted to underscore that.
Yes.
That point.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing that I often wonder about, novelty is easier for lay people to understand if their claim is novel, but the non-obviousness piece is difficult even for us. We know that there has to be a motivation to be able to combine those references to render something obvious, but I'm not sure how an automated software tool does that. I think you still need to have someone who is able to go through those references and analyze them and be able to combine them. So I just think that it's really important to have someone in the beginning who can walk with them as they go down through their business launch.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point too, Shelley, is that an automated platform can't also find the tidbits in a reference that might cause a teaching away argument or something like that, right? You may actually, from a keyword search, find that word everywhere in a spec, but then you might actually find that the whole crux of the spec is that they're actually trying to do the opposite thing, right? Mm-hmm. That they're, the exact opposite rationale or, completely different use case, completely different problem. And so I think that's where trained eyes and truly understanding the client's innovation can help with that.
Well, and to add on that, even understanding the language really plays into that.
Right.
Understanding what's being said. So, as we know, patents are a business asset that add value. They give businesses a competitive advantage. And this is where an offensive patent strategy really helps a smaller company and a startup company in the beginning. For them, without having the large amounts of money that larger corporations have, obviously they need to know, can they freely produce and sell this idea? Would they be able to license or enforce their patent down the road? And at some point, they may want to obtain investment funds or stimulate an acquisition. And I think that, some advanced offensive strategies is being able to capture the white space around their technology. And they may want to start tracking their competitors and inventors and the technology area in general. So interestingly, I read this LinkedIn article about Bumble's IPO earlier this year. And it said in the article, it said that they were involved in at least 7 patent infringement disputes when they made the announcement they were going public. And it also stated that a study showed that IP litigation goes up by 220% when a company decides to go public. Oh, wow. So really what they want to do offensively is mitigate this litigation from the beginning. The costs for lawyers, down the road will outweigh any initial patent strategy that they put in place. So
searching is not going to mitigate those necessarily always from happening, but it will show that you very diligently looked into everything at the outset, right? That you really, you did your diligence, and at the time that you went public or that you filed your patent application or whatever you did, that you really believed that you had freedom to operate or that you had, a good patentability argument, good position. And so it should reduce it for sure. but at minimum, it really shows that you were diligent in how you conducted your business with respect to your portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then
one thing is in a way, I think the obviousness, if you're searching for, obviousness combinations, in a way, I've sort of given up on that, because you never know what the examiner is going to find. So, I mean, the mindset I use really isn't so much we could combine this with that. It's just, is this case, in our neighborhood? I mean, is it really close? And then that's sort of being the main cut, and then and then going on from there. I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I've sort of given up on trying to predict obvious combinations. Just sort of let the examiner come up with what they want. I mean, that's the way I think.
Well, and having looked at, having worked with the patent office doing the searches, it even varies from examiner to examiner.
Right.
One examiner is going to combine references, and in his mind, it is very obvious. Another examiner comes along and says, but I don't see the motivation. So it is very subjective.
In the mind of the beholder, in the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a case where, the PCT, the written opinion was clean, right? So you think, oh, that's great. And the US examiner says this and this and this. So.
Right.
That's interesting. Was it the US, the ISA in that context too?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Anyway, subjectivity. I mean, that's sort of why I give up on the obviousness thing. Just let it happen.
I think, where you find the ballpark references, I think is a good strategy, in the sense that if you find a whole bunch of ballpark references, then it allows you to find a whole bunch of different backup positions that could address all of those, and even some that you didn't find, you know what I mean? And you can bake those into the spec. And so I think it at least gives you a really good leg up on what you might find.
Right.
For the initial. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, from a defensive patent strategy, really what businesses are looking to do is to protect themselves from other businesses. Larger corporations, having worked for one, we were focused on having a large number of patents in the portfolio. And a lot of that has to do with being able to cross-license or leverage during, using those patents during negotiations with other corporations. So it wasn't always quality, though quality is important, but it was really about having a large number of patents in your portfolio. On the other hand, startups, I believe, need to have a very different defensive patent strategy. They need to focus on quality over quantity, and they need to focus on what is their core invention and make sure that the specification is broad enough to cover many embodiments that they can use, not only from an offensive side, but from a defensive side for protection. And then, of course, they should be doing a freedom to operate search, or an infringement search, and make sure that they are not violating any other enforced patents out there.
Right.
Startups just don't have the money that large corporations have, or in-house counsel and those things. So their patent strategies are a little different. I think startups, smaller businesses should be heavily focused on the offensive patent strategies versus the defensive patent strategies. So depending on the business's end goals, there are various search types that can effectively steer business decisions in order to reach those end goals. So I want to briefly explain some search types and give some reasons why a business would want to invest in prior art searching. The first one is generally a patentability search. This is a perfect search strategy to determine novelty and non-obviousness during the initial stages of product planning and development. So you typically want to complete a patentability search prior to investing time and money and on resources on product development. The focus is generally worldwide patents, published applications, any non-patent literature, and it can have any priority date. It's just a good initial search for, especially for small startup companies. A validity or invalidity search is a search that's generally conducted after the issuance of a patent in order to locate any prior art that exists prior to the priority date. You're looking to validate or invalidate the claims of that patent. Again, we are looking at worldwide patents, published applications, any non-patent literature, having an earlier publication date or having an earlier priority date than that reference that you want to either validate or invalidate. Businesses might be interested in running this search if they want to assert their patent against someone. Maybe they want to license their product and they want to make sure that their patent that they hold is actually a valid, strong patent. Another example when a business would want to run this type of search is if a company is coming after you and is trying to invalidate your claims. So just make sure that you have a strong patent. Another type of search is an infringement or non-infringement patent search. This investigates whether the claims of an enforceable, unexpired patent covers or reads on your product or service. If you are ready to go to market with your product, you want to make sure that you are not infringing on someone else's patent. Another reason would be whether or not another business's product or services infringes your patent claims. Maybe you are looking to go and assert your patent against other companies out there. A freedom to operate or a clearance search is a search that is going to let you know if you can freely produce, use, or sell your product or service in a particular country. This actually looks at different jurisdictions. And let's see, if you are going to Africa only, you want to make sure that there is no patents there that would not allow you to do so. So you can also look to see if the product or service that you are wanting to market is already out there in the public domain. Another search type is the state of the art search. There are times when you want to gather information on the trends of the particular technology you're in. What are the companies doing, particular inventors? You want to run these searches in order to assist your R&D, your marketing groups. It gives you value. Maybe you want to have your business acquired. You want to know what's out there. Maybe you are interested in a joint venture with another company, and this helps determine what's out there. Another search type is a landscape search. These searches will help you ensure that you're making sound business decisions, good investments. It supports determining commercial or licensing value of your patent. It helps you understand the benefits or risks in entering a new technology area. A landscape search also will help provide competitive intelligence, what a particular company is doing, what a particular inventor is doing. But it also identifies any white space that may be out there, especially in crowded fields like electrical and computer science. It if you do a landscape search around a particular technology, it will show you what might be available for your business then to enter. Okay, so some of the strategies that I've used over the years, this is kind of the tips to finding that needle in the haystack. So first and foremost, I always forward and backward search the examiner cited references, including the non-patent literature. These searches are based on examiner searches. They are generally going to be the closest references found at the time. Of course, there are always references that hadn't printed or been published, but then each of those references provide further references to search on and to chase down. What I find during the forward and backward search is it provides keywords, synonyms, and equivalents that I may not have known about. So I just continue to add those to the list of keywords that I have going. And then I also glean the classifications, the class and the subclasses from these references. I have found these to be first and foremost the best sources of information.
And Shelley, can you remind us what the forward and backward references are for an application?
Yep, they are going to be on the front of a patent or patent application. They're cited references. The examiner cited references are always marked with an asterisk. The other cited references on the patents may be the company's, from the company's disclosure, but the asterisk references are the ones that I always look at. And I'll show you those when I go through the patent search itself. So the classes and the subclasses, we could go to the patent office, enter in keywords. It will bring up like the CPC code that for the keywords that you have entered. But what you really need to find out, or what you really need to focus on, is the invention itself. Putting in a mobile device when the invention is a thermal runaway feature isn't going to bring you the correct classifications. So it is quite cumbersome to actually kind of figure out the classes yourself. I found the easiest and quickest way is to, again, use those examiner cited references, the classifications that they used at the time, especially since they do change over time. And you could also perform a very quick keyword search and find those close references and start noting the classifications that way.
So let me ask you, the examiner references, what are you using as the source? I mean, are these, ballpark references you find and then you drill down from there?
Well, let's say I'm going to go over here and we'll go back to that. So on the search that I did for today, this reference here, Gin, is the examiner cited reference.
Right.
So if I were to invalidate this patent, for example, I would use these classifications up here. You can always, what you should do is, because this was in 2015, you should take these classifications, go back to the PTO website, plug them in, make sure they're still valid, because they do change.
Okay, so the object of this search then is to look for weaknesses in this patent. Is that right?
That was the object of my search for today.
All right.
So, but if you were doing a patentability search, for example, and didn't have an examiner cited reference with keywords, you could perform this keyword search, a very quick keyword search to begin with. find those close references, gather the classifications from those close references, and then start working on searches within that class. In my mind, a comprehensive search, whether it be patentability to infringement, should include a review of all the references in the core class or subclass. So they need to be found. How you find them is the challenge.
And then that would only find the US ones, and then you would do other databases for, well, I guess it wouldn't necessarily only find US ones. It would find anything else that was cited that was foreign, but then you would do other foreign databases to find other references.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what is your workhorse search tool, or do you use a handful? Do you have one main?
I use a handful, and I think it's important to use a lot of different databases. I generally start with Google Patents and Google Scholar. I don't think that they capture all of the patents, but they're a great place to start to get classification numbers, to gather keywords and synonyms. And then from there, I'll go on to Free Patents Online. I will use the USPTO website. They also have a USPTO Pub West and Pub East if you have access to a library that has the patent resources in it. Foreign databases, eSpaceNet, WIPO. You're going to search any type of Asian electrical references. You're going to want to go to the Japanese patent office. So each database, each database has their own unique search tools. They use Boolean operators differently. They might use the wildcards differently. They're fairly easy to understand. You just have to kind of remember which database you're in. But I always use a variety.
Does each database tell you how they use those different ones, or is that something that you kind of learned over time?
Yeah, they all have information boxes that you can look up and remember, oh, I need to use a star or an asterisk, or I need to use a $sign for truncation. So they're all a little bit differently, but fairly the same, fairly easy. So really, when you start your search, along with using the different databases, you need to start your search by thinking, what is the structure of the function? What is it? You also should search on what does it do? Search the end result or the problem solved. And then you can combine the two of them for another round of searching. And I generally start with the structure of the function, what it is exactly. I start broad and just continue narrowing it with adding keywords or Boolean operators. I rearrange the words. Sometimes I'll put the first words at the end words at the beginning. It does sometimes bring up different results. And then I sort by relevancy. So a lot of these searches, you might get, 200,000 references. You kind of search by relevancy and go through the first 20 to 30 or so references and see if you're hitting the right target. Another way that you look at it is you start very narrow, and then you start taking out keywords and start broadening it as you go and finding references that way. You can search the structure, but it may not be the same. It may not have the same end result as another similar structure. So you kind of want to come at the search in very different ways and see what references you're bringing up. And then some of the other tips, mechanical applications are really hard. They use very generic terminology. I always look at the drawings first. Electrical, it's a very crowded technology. Classification searching is very difficult in electrical. So I tend to search the Asian databases, and then that's where any cited references really help. Business methods, again, very generic terminology. They're not really represented in the drawings very well. So I tend to search the problem that is solved. What's the problem? And then I kind of back into it that way. Software, again, kind of the same as a business method. I kind of back into from the problem solved into the invention. And chemical and biotech, well, I'm going to refer it to a skilled practitioner because that's not my strong suit. You have to understand what the brand names are, the compounds, and I think it really requires experience in that technology itself.
So with regard to problem solved, is that a field? Can you search? I know Japanese patents or Korean. I mean, in the abstract, they'll say the problem. Is that a field, a searchable field?
No, it would just be, again, in your keyword searching.
Got it. Okay.
The actual problem.
Right. It would be a good field. It seems a good searchable field.
I think patents should have, honestly, actually thinking about it now, I feel like given how that technical field piece should actually be like problem to be solved or something, you could layer in multiple problems, right? And varying breadths of it. But I think that could be a really interesting field to have like required in the patent from couching the invention. I mean, it kind of is in the background, but making people really say, this is the problem I set out to solve, or here's a slew of problems that I set out to solve.
Right.
It'd be easier to classify as well. So, overall, I think that an agent knows the keywords. They can look up the classifications. They can really run through the mechanics of the search. But without them having an understanding of the overall context of the keywords in the description, it sometimes a search is meaningless. So you could, just as Ashley was saying earlier, a reference could have all of the keywords. However, they could be teaching away from that invention that you are actually looking for. So without understanding the context, I don't know how you could pull up meaningful references. And I think this is where human brain comes in to play a lot more than an automated search tool. So for today, I actually came across a patent that I thought I would kind of step through and show you what I do. In this case, it just happens to be an Apple patent, and these inventors, I don't have anything against them. I don't know how I picked this in this actual patent, but I just thought it was easy enough for everyone to be able to understand despite it's electrical. So what I do, for this search, we're going to invalidate claim 1. So for example, Apple may be asserting this patent against, for example, Nokia or Samsung, and a Nokia or a Samsung would want to invalidate this patent. That would probably be their first line of defense. So I note the priority date. In this case, we're going to have to find references prior to January 16, 2013. It is a continuation. I note the classifications, and I note the examiner cited references. In this case, it's GIN. They do have a couple other references on the second page that the examiner has cited. So having, since this is a continuation of another allowed patent, I would think it would be pretty difficult to find references. But when I went through Gin, this was the first examiner cited reference.
Can you just make that point again? Tell me what you just said about it being a continuation or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was your point?
With this being a continuation,
Right.
references may be difficult to find, considering this has now gone through at least 2 iterations of searches. Examiners have allowed the first, the parent, and now they've allowed the second.
I see. Right.
Yeah. So meaning that, in theory, the drafter knew the reference as well and was smart enough to, in theory, draft around them or do so better.
And in this case, when I looked at the parent, this second Apple patent, the claim 1 is broader than the parent claim. So they know what's out there. So the first thing I do is review those examiner cited references. And in fact, Gin. So to give you a brief overview of what the actual patent is, it is a mobile device that has a sensor, temperature sensor inside. It monitors its internal temperature. When it gets above a threshold, a power cap for the transmission power is reduced so that the device itself doesn't overheat. The second step is, however, if the mobile device is going to be sending a critical message to a base station, it will allow the transmission power to increase for just that period of time. So that's kind of what we're looking to invalidate. And when I look at Gin seems pretty close. It's also a mobile device that detects an internal temperature. It operating in a limited communication state for which only emergency communication is permitted. So I'm not understanding then why Gin didn't invalidate this Apple patent to begin with. So from there, I will go to the file wrapper. I do use the information in the file wrapper quite often. In this case, Apple received a final office action, and they appealed. In their appeal brief, they modified their claims to overcome the Gin reference and highlighted these sections that they believe overcome Gin. So they stressed that it is when they cap the power, it is a non-zero maximum transmission power. And then they release the power cap when the mobile device is transmitting a critical message. So these are the examiner's reasons for allowance. And from there, I know that I really need to focus on why the examiner actually allowed the patent. And when I set up my claim map chart, I highlight those sections. We pretty much know that Gin covers the main portion of claim 1. Given the examiner's reasons for allowance, I highlight those and then really focus in on just those aspects.
So we're all eagerly waiting, Shelley. Is it valid or is it invalid?
Well, it didn't take me too long to, in my mind, invalidate it. But so when I start my search, I again note all of the critical information. I start writing down my keywords. I always just put them in Boolean form because that's the way I'm going to use them. I'm going to look for a mobile or a phone or a cell phone. What we need a search would easily pull up mobile devices that have a temperature sensor and are able to sense the ambient temperature. But what we need to make sure we look for is the mobile device that is taking a temperature of its temperature and then throttling its transmission power. And I will go back as I iterate the search, I will go back and update these keywords so that my future iterations all include all of the keywords. For example, in this case, I had attenuate, control, lower, cap, or reduce. I didn't think about the word throttle. So I needed to go back and add throttle to the iteration once I found that keyword in a previous search. So again, I will do forward and backward searching on the parent and all of the examiner cited references. And I will go through each of those and expand on them. And then when I start setting up, I happen to do all of this in Google Patents. So when I set up the initial searching, it's going to be just very broad keywords. We're looking for any references before the priority date. And I will just iterate with adding more keywords. At some point, I'm going to add the Boolean operators. In this case, it's going to be transmission near power. We also could have the mobile device near temperature. What else do I have? Since we need to find a critical message in there, it's talking to the base station, we may put that in the same paragraph. So I will just continue to iterate and go back and forth and try to have a plan with, I'm going to go from broad to narrow. Here, I'm going to start with the actual function that the mobile device is providing. It's actually attenuating the transmit power. And then it attenuates the transmit power when the temperature exceeds a threshold. And so I will start going in that direction as well. And then at some point, I might add in the classifications. And in this case, I added the classifications in, went through the first 20 or so references, found this Japanese reference that was very close. And when I looked at the US equivalent, found this Panion. So this is a Qualcomm patent. The priority date is before Apple's date. How I basically do it is I review the title, I review the abstract. If they are close, I'll go into the description, I'll note the classifications and go from there. In this case, this one to me was a 102 reference. So I would go back to my reference table and map it for the client. So this is the claim 1 that we wanted to invalidate. And where in this reference, this Qualcomm reference, I found the location and the segment that invalidates the claim 1 and its elements. So Qualcomm does talk about the WAN device that throttles its transmission power based on its internal temperature. And I will just map through each element. And the highlighted sections here were the examiner reasons for allowance. And then over on the Qualcomm side, of course, is the verbiage that talks to that piece of the reasons for allowance. So it took me about an hour and a half to find it. If this were an actual client search, you want it to be more exhaustive and more complete, I would then take this Qualcomm reference. I would do, again, forward and backward searching on it. I would add any classification that might have been missing. I would add in other synonyms, such as throttle, and I would do the search again. So typically for an invalidation or an infringement search, I try to find at least one 102 reference and then several 103 references to allow, the law firm or whoever is wanting to invalidate this patent, the opportunity to combine for obviousness how they see fit.
Awesome. So I'll have to apologize to Apple now.
I know. Sorry, Apple. I said nothing against them, but
You do make great products, although it hasn't
yes,
been years.
I still have my Apple phone. So of course the caveats, searching is, as you mentioned, David, searching is very subjective. Patent examiners are very subjective. And I think it makes it very difficult, but the more you understand what you're looking for, the easier it is. Right. And I think that with over 11 million patents and applications, plus all of the non-patent literature out there, a comprehensive and thorough search obviously requires working closely with the clients in order to perform a very focused examination. So, and then of course, any trade secrets that aren't published, you aren't going to be able to find.
I think that's an interesting question. I think we've actually gotten a lot, is that clients wonder whether if they have a trade secret and then, because trade secrets don't protect you from somebody independently deriving your trade secret rights. And then what if you have a trade secret starting in 2000 and then somebody creates it themselves, like independently derives it, comes about it, whatever, in 2005, and they seek a patent on it. And then are you prevented from practicing your trade secret because, you never patented it? And, I think what we've kind of discerned from reviewing everything is, at the end of the day, you wouldn't be, because you'd be able to show use through confidential documents, right? Use of that trade secret well before the patent filing date. And honestly, only that would come to light if, for whatever reason, that company that patented it came across you and had reason to believe that you were using the method, and then they would have to, try to seek patent infringement. And then you'd have to prove that you were using it 5 years earlier, that they should never have gotten the patent in the first place. But that is a question that people routinely, but that's true. You're not going to find any of those in a search. You're not going to find, or even, patents that or patent applications that are subject to non-publication requests. You're not going to find those either.
You won't find those.
So,
well, and even that is still, it's 18 months before they're published.
Mm-hmm, right.
I think just being able to come at it in many different directions is the key to finding relevant art. Being able to come at it from the invention itself, from the problem that's solved, from the actual results. You kind of come at it from different angles to find what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think it's valid point.
And then, of course, it comes down to time. If you had all the time in the world, you might be able to find a lot more. But there's a trade-off, time and finding what you need within that time and budget.
Right.
So did you work as, were you dedicated to patent searching for a while? Was that your job title, or what?
Yeah.
How did you get so good at all this?
Well, yeah, and I searched 100% of the time for 8 years.
Really? For
Yes.
a search
Yes.
firm? For who was your
It, yeah, it was a Cardinal patent search
oh,
firm.
Cardinal. Oh,
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
I see.
Yeah, so I think that you do become more familiar with searching. Obviously, the more you do it, you know what you're looking for. I am able to go through references very quickly, just kind of looking at, like I was saying before, I look at the drawings, I look at the title, I look at the abstract, I look at the claims. I then go and look at the description and find those keywords, those highlighted keywords, and then understand the context of those keywords. I think it kind of ranges. I think you can probably look at a reference within 30 seconds, know whether or not you discard it or keep it. If you feel it's close, you might want to look at it a little more. Now you're at like maybe 3 to 5 minutes looking at a patent application or a reference to see if it's a keeper. But obviously you are looking at thousands and thousands of references for even a patentability search, let alone a landscape search or, some of the more involved searches. So you tend to learn how to skim, and really kind of get the context quickly. In fact, when I was kind of walked away from patent searching and I tried to read a book, I had a very difficult time. I had to teach myself to slow down a little bit and actually read and enjoy it.
Right.
What's this novel concept of reading every word?
Right.
And then we throw you back into it.
Well, I do find it very interesting. It's like a challenge, right? It's I find it very, it's like this goal I have. All right, I'm going to invalidate this Apple patent.
Right.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to work until I find it.
Right.
Sure, it's out there.
But all that said, though, too, I think the other interesting thing is that, I tell clients a lot of times is that I believe you can almost always get a patent, but it's what is the value of the patent, and that's in proportion to the breadth, right?
Mm-hmm,
and if you want, a crazy broad patent, that's going to heavily determine the technology, the landscape, whatever. But if you're really just looking for a patent because some investor told you to, and they're already giving you gobs of money, then maybe something more narrow to get it through quickly is what you want. But, there's usually a patent in there somewhere. It's just, how much are you willing to spend to get that crazy broad one versus how much are you willing to leave on the table to get a narrower one?
A narrow one. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So how typically do you engage the client during this process? During the process?
Typically not often. Certainly not going through it unless you run into a situation where you're not understanding it, maybe a technical concept,
Mm-hmm.
and want it explained. A lot of it can be done without, kind of the client back and forth, as opposed to patent drafting, right?
Right.
You want to get everything when you're drafting patent applications. But as far as searching, you generally have a go, unless it's a patentability search. In that case, you probably do want to have some back and forth to completely understand what's out there.
Right.
And I think, sometimes what we've done too, I know, is kind of in that initial download stage, we'll have, because sometimes, not always, but a lot of times clients already have a relatively good idea about at least companies in the space that are big players. And so, we've even, in some instances had almost like a technology summary document that highlights any companies or inventors or whatever that they're already aware of.
Right.
And then kind of like a summary of the technology. And sometimes we've done that to make sure that everybody is on the same page before embarking on a search. But that also kind of like kind of depends on the technology and how complicated, what kind of search you're doing. Freedom to operate is probably, I mean, you can answer this, Shelley, but it's probably one of the more straightforward ones in the sense that, or like, invalidity, in that the claims are the claims, right? You're searching
Right.
those. There's no, I mean, there's interpretation, right, of what those claim term means. But in terms of what you're searching, it is the claims. It's
Right.
not 16 variations, or, various embodiments of those claims. It's the claims. Like, as you mentioned, patentability starts to get into, well, you could do it this way, or you could do it that way, or we could have this, or we didn't need to have that, or it could look like this, but it wouldn't have to look like that. And
So when you're working with a client, Ashley, do you offer a search? Do you talk about searching? Do some clients say skip the search? How do those conversations go?
yeah, I mean, I think we almost always try to include like an hour or two of searching when we do new drafts, new drafting, just because it helps us couch the application with respect to the art a little bit. For some of the clients that we work with, especially with some of the business accelerators and incubators, they have access to free tools like not free tools, I guess. They have access to tools that the incubator accelerator pays for, like anography or equivalents. And so sometimes we even have companies that come to us with a whole list of references. Here's 30 references that, as I plotted along through anography, these are the references that I found. That already presents a pretty good idea of what's out there. But then for other clients, it's enough of a crowded space, or they're really concerned about freedom to operate, or, they're undergoing diligence. And so for some clients, it's more of like, again, that trade-off of, we want some searching done to kind of understand what's out there, but we also don't want to be crazy, and spend gobs of money. So I think it's kind of all sorts. And then there's even a few clients that we have that are in very busy spaces where they actually have routine monitoring. Every month we get a huge download of references of, various inventors or companies, kind of tracking their publication record over time. And I review, like, for instance, we have 3 clients right now that we do this for, and we get about 400 references every month that I triage and try to find the needles in the haystack in those references, right? And so I end up finding, 20 or 30 for one client, maybe 1 for another, and then maybe 2 for another. And so those, it's just like, oh, this company is now moving into our space. So this company is moving further away from our space. This inventor moved companies and now might be doing more of their stuff, or things like that. Because you can see, sometimes inventors are kind of incestuous, right? They kind of stick in the same types of companies, same right. Fields. Yeah, it's interesting. A whole nother world. But yeah, I think it's definitely helped our clients when we've done it to either help them, we have a few clients that come in with these extremely high level ideas, and you're like, that's great, but I can't effectively draft if you don't drill down more, because, here's 10 references that on this high level talk about your innovation. So if you want me to draft this and to get, to maximize the quality of the application, it's a good forcing function to get the client to drill down and say, well, what do you really want to protect in this? You can't just protect this like lofty idea. It has to be something, more specific in this space, and it helps them focus sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I guess, that's something that, I think one of the main values of searching is that it helps you draft the claim. There's sort of this iteration of, this is what we want to claim, and then you find this and you find that, and you realize you need to narrow, or you need to add a dependent, anyway, yeah, it's an interesting area. I've mentioned this before. I use a site called Acclaim, with 2 C's, Acclaim, and they're they're pretty good. They're a little quirky, but they have a data extraction feature, so you can pull out, an Excel table, with all the fields you want, and
nice.
and then you can look at a whole bunch of stuff all at once. And in general, I focus on the abstract. That's not 100% safe, right? Because sometimes abstracts say nothing.
Or they're not updated when people file a continuation.
Yeah, right. Here's our abstract from 10 years ago. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, the abstract's just going to give you the general idea of whether or not that reference is going to be worthwhile looking into a little bit more.
Right.
So it's
Right.
good, like first triaging, titles and abstracts are a good first triaging, or like I said, figures too, where you can kind of look through and be like, wow, that's completely off basis, or, might be enough in the field where I should look at it a little closer.
Right.
I'll just beat up on a little bit more. So this was a search that was done 5 or 6 years ago before I was on the scene, and they rely on Boolean search. What is your search string? So like a full, a search string, that's like a page long. And if you screw up, one and or one or, then
Right.
then you're screwed. And the other thing that they did, I don't know if they still do this, but they searched the entire spec. Right? They don't focus on the claim. We're going to look at, and so what that does is it gives you 10 times the number of references, 99% of which are irrelevant.
Did they not go through the references for relevancy for you? It just spits out the references, and you had to check them all.
Well, this particular search that I'm complaining about happened before I was there, but yeah, they go through and pick out a few, but you're shooting yourself in the foot if your selection is 9,000 references, right? It's just overwhelming. And that's what happens if you search everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and I think that's the importance of coming at it from many different directions.
right. I think that their orientations, they want to be able to show, here's exactly how we search. Here's our string, beginning and end. Here it is, and so they sort of line up behind that. And anyway, it's funny. A major firm, and they're not half as sophisticated as Shelley. Really.
Well, thank you, David.
It's tough to compare.
Well, really, it's odd. I don't see how they.
They don't have a Shelley. That's it.
Yeah. Therein lies the problem. Everybody needs a Shelley. Actually, I have two in my life: a mother-in-law and this Shelley. So I'm doubly blessed.
Twice blessed. Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Thanks. Great job today, Shelley. Really appreciate it. And Amy, thanks for joining the first time. We hope to see you, hear you more in the future.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. I thought it was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great Tuesday.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that's all for today, folks. Thanks for listening, and remember to check us out at aurorapatents.com for more great podcasts, blogs, and videos covering all things patent strategy. And if you're an agent or attorney and would like to be part of the discussion, or an inventor with a topic you'd like to hear discussed, email us at podcast@aurorapatents.com. Until next time, keep calm and patent on.
And then the man says twins, and it's just so f***ing smug,